Hi there, welcome back, and thanks again for participating in these estate planning minutes. I've gotten some wonderful questions from you all via social media, and I look forward to answering some of them briefly for you today. The first question is, there's been a lot in the news lately about President Trump ending the federal estate tax. What does this mean for me and my estate? So, background on the federal estate tax for starters. The federal estate tax is a tax that the United States government applies to estates valued over a certain threshold of money. Now, historically, that threshold has varied greatly. For instance, 20 years ago, and extending even further back than that, the tax was applied to any estate valued at over $600,000. Now, today it's $5 million plus. So clearly, the number of families that have to concern themselves with the federal estate tax is far, far smaller now than it was 20 or even 10 years ago. That said, it's still a very important thing to understand because if you do incur this tax, it applies a very, very high tax rate. Secondly, it's very important you understand this tax does not apply when property is passed from a husband to a wife. So that means the most important thing is having a plan in place that will apply if and when both spouses pass away. Finally, it's very important to understand something that is very much overlooked in the media for the most part, and that is many states, including Illinois, have a state estate tax as well. And that level of exemption may be, depending on what state you're in, higher or lower than the federal estate tax exemption. So that means you might be subject to state estate tax, but still exempt from federal estate tax. Now, I know all this is kind of mind-numbing and it's not the most interesting topic, but it's very important, again, because the federal estate tax, for example, applies a 40% tax rate. So we're talking about a significant amount of money here if you do qualify. So what does it mean if they kill the death tax, as they like to say? First of all, personally, and this is purely an opinion, I am skeptical of the idea that they will kill the tax. There have been numerous attempts by the Republicans over the last several decades to end this tax, and many of these times they have been, as they are now, in control of both the executive and legislative branches. Yet despite that, they've not been able to do it. They've only been able to drive the exemption level up. So personally, I think it's unlikely that it will happen. If it does happen, again, it's only that small number of households that qualifies for the estate tax currently that need to be concerned. It's a huge benefit to them, obviously. And if you're under that exemption level, then nothing will change from the federal estate tax position. You will still be exempt from estate tax. Now, the bigger question, the more interesting question from my perspective is, what will the states do? Because the states, by and large, try to mirror that federal exemption. I think it's highly unlikely that Illinois or any other state that currently has an estate tax at the state level will follow the federal government and end the estate tax. States simply don't have the budgetary wiggle room to do this the way the federal government seems to think it may. So, in a nutshell, the federal estate tax applies to a fairly small percentage of households. If it is taken away, which again, I don't think it will be, then it will be a boon to wealthier individuals who will be able to pass that wealth on to their families without concern for the federal estate tax. But they should also be mindful of the fact that there are state estate tax processes in place in many states. Thanks very much.